Okay, cool. Well, hey, Phil, thank you for taking a minute out. I really appreciate it. I'm intrigued by your history and your acumen. And what I want to know first and foremost, we've gone through quite a time with COVID on the planet. And I'm curious how you survived that time period and how it changes the way that not only you live your life, but the way that you approach business.
It's a good question. COVID was I was going to say a bit of a dramatic period. That might be a slightly British understatement, given that I nearly died several times. So I was in and out of hospital quite a lot. I had pneumonia for 7 months. I had 2 suspected heart attacks that thankfully turned out not to be heart attacks. My heart was reacting very badly to a surge in my central nervous system. So my body had essentially gone into fight or flight because of the virus. And that was causing some upset. So it's funny actually, because when it first started, or like within the first 6 months, I've never been this sick in my whole life, Joe. As a former professional athlete, I've been injured a lot. I don't get sick very often. So it's funny actually. My friends and family now kind of jokingly say, they didn't at the time, but they jokingly say now, it's like, trust you, like you never sick your whole life, and then the one time you do, you nearly die. Like you don't do things by halves, do you? But when it first happened, I used to say, you know what? COVID is the worst thing that ever happened to me. The worst thing that ever happened to me. Now I look at it completely differently, and I say that it was the best thing that ever happened for me, because those 2 years of hell have given me at least another 10 years of life expectancy off the back end. My lifestyle choices are much better. I'm living a much healthier life. I now work 2.5, maximum 3 days a week, and I'm no longer the 6 day a week, 10 to 15 hour a day workaholic. I have a much better relationship with my children. It wasn't like I had a bad relationship with them. They just never saw me because I was always working. And, now daddy's off work more than he's in work. It made me do something that I wasn't very good at, which is delegating to people in my team. I have a great team around me, but I will freely admit I am a control freak. So having a team around me that I was forced to delegate to because I frankly did not have the energy to be able to do that work anymore, made me get good at that skill, which is not something that came naturally to me.
Yeah.
You know what? I think a lot of people, you'll have heard people say this before, but when people have a near-death experience, they're rarely the same person again afterwards. And that was definitely the case for me. I mean, I suddenly started thinking about, why am I here? What's my life's purpose? Really kind of thinking quite deeply about this stuff. And I remember being quite angry at myself, being lay in a hospital bed thinking, I've done this to myself. Like, I've worked myself into the ground, and now my body can't fight this infection, and I'm about to leave my beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters at home, both very young, and they're going to have to grow up without a husband and a father, and that's my fault. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me, and this sort of I'm not going to say I had the conversation with God exactly, but I definitely had that sort of thought process of, if I get out of this, I will do things so differently next time around. And I've stuck to that promise and will stick to that promise. But you know what the irony is, Joe? I actually sat down with my wife and I said, I'm going to be working a lot less, so we're probably going to earn a lot less as a family. Like, are we okay with the fact that the income's going to drop and like this is what it's going to look like? We've 4x'd our business since that time.
Wow.
So because instead of me now trying to be the person that does everything, I'm now the person that lives in my superpower, and I spend 80% of my time in that, and anything that isn't my superpower, I either partner or hire so that I can delegate it to somebody who it is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, let's get to the essence of what you do. And what I want to do is I want to boil this down a little bit. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 3rd graders at a career day. And one of them looks up and says, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
Well, it's a good question. I make business owners famous for their customers. That's what I do. So the best way to describe what I do is I take somebody from unknown to unrivaled. There are so many people who are really good at what they do, but they are their industry's best kept secret because nobody knows about them. I'm the person that gives them the stage, the spotlight, and the microphone so that the whole world knows about them.
So when you were in the 3rd grade, what was your dream to grow up to be?
Oh, I wanted to be a football player. Soccer for you, football for me. In fact, I lived that life for a long time. I played professionally until my early 20s when I got medically retired, and then I decided to become a coach, and I hated coaching. I often describe it as being like a recovering alcoholic trying to manage a bar. Like I wanted to be on the field, not on the side of the field, teaching other people. And in fact, I wasn't even a very good coach because I was coaching 15 and 16-year-olds who weren't that much younger than me in many respects. And they were my friends, some of them. And I just wanted to be on the field and train with them. So I did. I just went on the field and trained all day and then spent the whole evening in agony icing my shin. So it wasn't a very good move for me. It wasn't very wise. But that was my dream the whole way along. I wanted to be a football player. That was where I was going. And unlike so many millions of others, I actually got to live my dream, which is pretty special. That is special. So are you a fan of Ted Lasso? Yeah, I am. I enjoy that show a lot. I'm also really enjoying the documentary series on Welcome to Wrexham, with Ryan Reynolds and what's the other guy called? Oh, he's going to hate me for that, isn't it? You know exactly what I mean. The guys that have bought Wrexham and Rob McAlely. Rob, sorry if you're listening. Always Sunny in Philly, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So they've done a great job, and they're currently, as you're listening to this podcast, they're currently top of the league. They won their last game the other day, so they're currently pushing really hard for promotion, which is great. I went to Glyndor University, and the campus I went to is in Wrexham. So in fact, my university building shares a car park with the raceground stadium. So I would sit and look at Wrexham Stadium all day, every day. So watching them doing so well and gaining promotion and getting that international traction is phenomenal. In fact, in a really weird way, think about what I've just been talking about as a business. My job is to make sure that people know about you, right? You're no longer your best kept secret. Yeah. Wrexham, this small town in the northwest of England, in North Wales, is sponsored by TikTok and has 2 Hollywood celebrities that own it because they've used their celebrity to shine the spotlight on this club in Wrexham. And that's special, but look at the difference that's made. Netflix wanting to do their drama and Disney wanting to I mean, Disney have given them like 2 series now of a Disney series that's airing globally on their network. TikTok have sponsored their shirts. They have so many different brands now from across the pond that would never in a million years have wanted to get involved with Wrexham if it wasn't for those 2 owners. But Wrexham as a football club and as a small city in North Wales are both benefiting greatly from that additional exposure. And although it's nothing to do with me, it's a great example of the work that I do. It's why putting a spotlight on people is important. Absolutely it is. So where did these seeds begin in you when you were younger? You're obviously highly driven, not only as an athlete, but as a professional. Where did all of this begin for you, and how did it become who you are right now? So, great question. So I didn't have the best start in life, I think is probably fair to say. Potentially on some people judging my background might see that as a bit of an understatement. So I was in and out of the social care system. I grew up in a very abusive household, drug abuse, violence, you name it. It was a mess. I got kicked out of school at 14. I even had a stint of homelessness in my teenage years. So, in fact, football literally saved my life because if I didn't get the scholarship to go and train at one of England's best football academies that came with a housing grant, I would have still been sofa surfing and sleeping in doorways. So statistically, I'm supposed to be dead or in prison. I'm not supposed to be where I am today. But the very start of my life was extremely different. It was a contrast of highs and lows. So my mom had me when she was very young, and her mother raised me until about the age of 10. And she'd previously raised 7 children. My mom's the youngest of 7, 6 of whom are all incredibly highly successful individuals. So she had already been there and done that and raised some incredibly impressive people. And she really kind of took me under her wing and raised me. She was a very special woman. And she really set the foundation for all of this. I talk a lot in my work about finding your superpowers. Well, it was my grandmother that first spoke to me about superpowers. She used to say that I had ADHD and I couldn't concentrate on anything. And she said, until he puts his mind to it. And then as soon as he puts his mind to it, he becomes laser focused, 110% all in on whatever he's doing, just so that he can become the best at that thing. And she used to call that my Philip powers, my superpowers. She said as soon as he turns it on, he is just laser focused. Like he zooms everybody else out of the room. He can't hear them. He can't see them. He's not listening. He's just focused on what it is that he's doing. And that was really special. And you know, being raised by somebody that told me that I could be anything I wanted to be and do anything that I wanted to do, you know, really kind of gave me that confidence and self-belief to push on. So even when things were at their worst and I was sleeping in a doorway, or, you know, I was in a children's home, or whatever it is as the situation, there was always this thing in the back of my head that said, this isn't my life. This isn't what I'm here for. I'm here for more than this. I believe my grandmother more than anybody else. You can tell me I'm worthless. You can tell me I'll never amount to anything. I believe her more than I believe you. And she said that I was destined for big things. So I'm destined for big things. And I just kind of not took it in my stride as such, but I took real comfort from that motivation.
Would you consider her your hero?
Definitely. Undoubtedly. Yeah.
So speaking of heroes and celebrity and those things, if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and have a conversation with them, who would it be?
Sir Richard Branson.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not meant to sound egotistical in the slightest. I see a lot of similarities in our personality. He also has ADHD and really struggles to concentrate. He has become a master at delegation. And, you know, I was speaking to somebody who works with him, and he says he basically works in a hammock for a few hours a day, and he's got 2 assistants either side of them, and he just kind of answers questions to one and gives ideas to the other. And that's how he does business. And his genius is that he surrounds himself with other people who are the best at this. So it's a great example of when I talk about building your superhero team. He's got that down pat. He's nailed that. And that's a skill set that I only really started to develop when I fell sick with COVID. I really needed to learn to do that. I was pretty good at tapping into my superpower. I was pretty terrible at delegating and finding people around me to support me. And as somebody who I recognize a lot of myself in his personality, I think just tapping into his brain for a little bit and really understanding how it's wired would be very helpful and insightful for me. So he is definitely somebody that I would love to sit down with.
If I took a poll of everybody that picks people, he would have to be on the top of that list.
Yeah.
People love to.
He's brilliant. Do you know what it is? I think it's so, and don't get me started on this rant, but I'll tell you why I think that is. We've all been through the education system, at least those of us that weren't fortunate enough to be homeschooled, right? And school teaches us that you've got to be a straight A student across the board. You've got to be a good generalist, and that, you know, cheating is the worst thing you can do. Cheating in class can get you detention. Cheating in an exam can get you expelled, right? But cheating is exactly how that works in business. It's how you get ahead, right? So turning to your friend in the exam who's a maths genius and saying, hey, what did you get for number 2? Like, that gets you expelled. Doing that in business gets you an award, right? It's being able to go, hey, you're awesome at this. Like, what does this look like? And Richard Branson, for whatever reason, has become the person in modern day business that really sort of encapsulates that. The person who's there saying, the best thing that I can do is bring together a room full of people who are within their superpower and make them the cups of tea so that they can get on with the business. Like, that's his genius. Like, he's not trying to be this egotistical leader at the top of the business that all the ideas have to be his or it's the wrong idea. In fact, I almost take the opposite opinion from him, which is if he's the person coming up with the ideas, he's not happy because it means he hasn't brought in the right people.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. There's something really powerful about that.
There is, absolutely. So let's get to kind of the real way that you move and the way that your soul works. And I want to know, if you have a dream tonight, you run into your 20-year-old version of yourself. You could take all the wisdom and experience and the avenues you've been down, and you could condense that into a piece of advice for your young version. What would you tell that younger version of you?
Well, it's a deep question.
Yeah.
I think I would tell myself to just keep going because I achieved more than I ever thought was possible.
Right on. What's been one of the best fan letters you've ever gotten, whether being an athlete or a businessman? What's been one that's reverberated in your life and blown you away?
There was one recently, actually, about 6 months ago. So I've had a number over the years, but there was one 6 months ago that really that was really special. Somebody, it wasn't a letter as such, but somebody booked in a call with me, and I didn't know who this person was. They booked in, and I don't even know how they found my link, right? They just said, oh, I found a booking link for you online, and I booked a call. And to be honest, I was going to cancel it because I didn't know who the person was. And I turned up to the call, and I was completely confused. I thought maybe they'd been referred by a client or something. And he said, listen, I just wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank you in person. And I said, okay. He said, my wife thanks you too. And I was like, okay, what's up? And he said, a couple of years ago, I lost my job, and I tried to set up a business, and we pretty much lost everything. Like, we lost our home, my health declined, my relationship with my wife was in the toilet, like everything was just, it was horrific. And I said, okay. He said, but I've been listening to your work, I've been listening to your podcast, I've been watching your TV show, and I've been implementing the advice that you give probably for a good solid 2 years now. And I said, okay, great. And he said, and I wanted to book in a call and tell you I've just made my first $1 million. And he said, business has never been so good. I've never been so happy. And I put this squarely at your front door, and I just wanted to say thank you. And the bit that really got me was, as he was wrapping up the call, just as a throwaway comment, he said, I never thought I would be here, especially when less than a year ago I considered ending it all because I didn't see the point. And he said, but now I've never felt better. I'm able to help people. I'm able to give back to my local community, and my relationship's really strong. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. I just wanted to say thank you. And off he went just as quickly as he'd arrived. And that Zoom call finished, and I burst into tears.
Wow.
Because I was like, okay, so I know the clients that I work with, and I get to celebrate their success with them. But I'd never had a stranger come up to me and be like, listen, thank you for everything that you do, because you're the reason I'm still here and the reason I have the stuff that I have today. Like, that was kind of overwhelming, actually, especially given I hadn't expected the call. And it also made me feel kind of guilty, actually, because a large part of the content that I create is based on networking and me learning and meeting people. And it's one of the things that's made us successful is that I don't hamper to the audience. But actually, I don't even really think about the audience. Like, we have a podcast that has 1 million downloads plus each month, right? Let me tell you this, Joe. If I went onto a podcast thinking there's 1 million people listen to this, I would be panicking. I would not be comfortable. It'd be really strange, right? It's like there's 1 million people listening to this. I'd be so careful about what I say. So I have to see it as there's nobody else here. It's just me and you, Joe. That's it.
Yeah,
it's just us having a conversation. And if other people want to listen to this and get some benefit from it, then great. But right now, this is just me and you having a conversation.
That's it.
But because I'd never given any thought to the audience, I'd never thought about the impact that this was having on people. So I almost sort of sat there and thought, is there more that I could do? Is there more that I could give on those interviews? If this is helping people, like, I love helping people, is there any more that I can do? And I think I spoke to my wife about it because I was quite, not shaken up, I don't think that's the right expression, but I was definitely moved by it. And she gave me a great piece of advice, which she often does. She's the yin to my yang. She's brilliant. And she said, that happened because of that you're doing it the way that you're doing it. So don't change the way that you're doing it off the back of that feedback. That doesn't make any sense. She said, I often hear you say to your clients, successful people repeat successful actions. So why would you change what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, on the other end of that, I'm always intrigued by people like you that have such an A game in business. You're not afraid of failure. And I think that's always intriguing, because it's like anything. Like, people tend to be afraid to move and to do big things in their lives. But people that are good in business take that chance to fail, not that they want to, but they take it and they turn it into something. Say like COVID, like a near-death experience. You take that, you quantify it, and you make it into something that will be beneficial, that will be ultimately a good thing.
I mean, sometimes we do want to fail, actually. Yeah. So I think I don't see failure as failure. I'm either earning or I'm learning. And, you know, the way that I see mistakes rather than failures is I would rather make a $50,000 mistake than a $50 million mistake. So I'd rather learn that lesson now than when it's much bigger and it's going to hurt even more. You know, if somebody says you're going to make a mistake and lose 20% of your business, well, I'd rather that be 20% of $1 million business than 20% of $1 billion business.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do that now. And that's where strength testing and thing comes in. I mean, it's the whole idea is let's push this beyond breaking point and see what it's capable of.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, that's the reason that We've all heard stories about very successful entrepreneurs that, they're multimillionaires and then they go bankrupt. They make a mistake and they go bankrupt. And then the next time you hear about them is like 6 months later and they're a multimillionaire again. You're like, how did that happen? And it's like, because they know step 1 through 20, and it was step 21 that caused the problem. So they can really quickly get back to step 20 because they know what that roadmap looks like. So they can just take the action and push forward. 21, they're going to do differently next time because they know that that wasn't the right choice. But it's not like they start again from scratch. They start again with, well, I know how to get to step 20 on this ladder, so let's just get there as quickly as possible, and then I'll make a different decision at 21.
Yeah.
I also liken it to sports because, as I said, I came from sports, so that was my background. You learn a lot more from losing than you do from winning.
Yeah.
When you watch back games that you've won and footage of it, it's essentially just stroking the ego and highlight footage. It's like, hey, look how good I'm doing. But when you lose and you watch that footage back, it's like, well, how did he get that space on the field? What happened there? Like, where was this person? Like, did I not do my bit? Did they not do their bit? Mm-hmm. Did I take too long to get back from here? So you learn more by analyzing your losses than you do by analyzing your wins. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, and you're talking to the right city right now because we're on the brink of maybe going to another Super Bowl, and the Chiefs have to go up against Cincinnati, which has beat us the last 3 times. Right. And I guarantee you those guys are sweating in a film room right now. Yeah. And they're looking at everything you just said because I'm nervous as a fan. I know how mighty they can be, but sport. I mean, it's like there's always that Goliath, and it's like, how do you take him down?
I love that you just said that because I talk about my work a lot being David versus Goliath. So I'm the guy that gives David the rock and teaches him how to throw it, right? Because I am very anti like the big boys. So the nickname that I was given a few years ago by my clients and some people that I spoke to on stage that kind of stuck was the underdog champion of the world. Because that's who I like to champion. I don't like I have worked for some of the biggest brands on the planet, but it's not my thing. I don't want to be the reason that a multi-billion-dollar business gets another % or 2. I want to be the reason that a small business takes that $1 million business or $1 billion business down. And business now more than ever has been about agility, right? So there's lots of packages and ideas and opportunities being dropped in the water. Who's going to get there first, the jet ski or the oil tanker? And that's kind of the way that I look at this. So that's where I think people's agility can be their superpower. But you're absolutely right. You're talking about your team. They're not going to win that Super Bowl by practicing on the field. That's not how this is going to happen. Yeah. They're going to win that Super Bowl by understanding what they did wrong last time and cutting out those mistakes. So it's not about how many right things can you do? It's about how many wrong things can you limit. So if they made 50 mistakes in the last Super Bowl final that lost them the game, let's get that down to 10 mistakes and hope that they make more mistakes than we do.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. Let's get to the essence of you, and I'm curious, everyone has a perception of you. You have your family, your friends, your clients, your listeners, but ultimately you're in control of your life, your id, your perception of your reality. Who do you think you are?
Wow. I like that question.
This is the therapy question. This is we get to the brass tacks.
I feel like I'm somebody who I want to save other people. And I would really like to teach people the lessons that I've learned through my life through hardship without them needing to go there. Like the lessons I learned in business because of long COVID, I would love to teach somebody that without them needing a near-death experience, right? The lessons that I learned from a childhood of extreme highs and lows, I would love to teach somebody that without them needing to go through abuse or homelessness or drug abuse or whatever. And I think I kind of got to the point in my life not so long ago. I mean, within the last 5 years for sure, being a father mellowed me out a lot. I think prior to being a father, what happened was, so my eldest is now 9 years old. And I think prior to being a father, I was very angry. I was quite bitter at the world, actually, when I look back at myself. I was very angry. I was kind of like, why did this happen to me kind of thing? And that was almost my whole attitude. I was quite an aggressive person. And then as soon as I had children, especially my firstborn, that changed almost instantly, because I remember thinking, I don't want to pass this on to her. Like, I don't want her growing up with my anger and my attitude. And I'm aware that if I raise her this way, this is what she's going to pick up. She's going to think the world's a very negative place. She's going to think everybody's out to get you. She's going to just not find any positives in this whatsoever. And that really changed my perspective. And then the more that kind of thought process evolved, the more I realized that I was like, you know what? All of this stuff happened to me and I can't change it. And the funny part of this is, now if you ask me, I don't think I would change it. I often have people say to me now, if you could go back and change something, what would you change? And I said nothing, because I'm really paranoid that I would end up in a different place to where I am now. And where I am now is a million miles further ahead than I ever thought I would be. You know, I have an incredible business, an incredible life. I have incredible friends. Most importantly, I have a wonderful family. And I never thought that this was possible for me. So I feel like I have an obligation to try and help other people to learn the lessons that I've learned, both in life and in business, without them needing to go through the valley of death as I had to kind of learn them.
I love that answer. Phil, if anyone out there wants to know more about you, learn more about anything that you're involved with, where do they go?
Great question. You can find me at billionairesinboxers.com. The one social media platform I actually manage myself is LinkedIn. So if you want to come and check me out, Phil Pelucha on LinkedIn. I think it's Philip Pelucha on LinkedIn, actually. But I think I'm like, within my family, I'm the only person that has this name. So if you search Pelucha online, you're going to find me. Just come say hey. Let me know what you found interesting about the interview. If you have any questions, any comments, any criticisms, I'm always open to them. Come say hey.
You're a Titan, man. Phil, thank you very much for your time. Have a great 2023, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and best of luck with the Super Bowl, brother.
Oh, yes. We'll need it. Cheers.
Thank you.